Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast, or I won't say my wrestling video podcast here on YouTube. I gotta at least be more specific with that, I guess, over time. Again, still working on the audio side and everything in that sense. Also, with the aspect that, yes, this episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle is going to focus around GFW's Impact Wrestling. I'm actually going to skip NXT's this week because, well, NXT after Impact or after a takeover is usually, I won't say it's not good, it's just uneventful. I have watched it, just to go off and say, go ahead and watch the tag team match with Wolfgang and Pete Dunne versus Mustache Mountain. Really good tag team match. It really is. So if anything, go ahead and watch that. If for anything else, but in the terms of wanting to do a review for it, there's not much to it because it's like the typical NXT after a takeover. It's recaps, this, that. So, with that being said, getting that out of the way, why we're not going to be doing a strictly NXT version this week, we're going to go straight into Impact Wrestling on August 24th, 2017, and this was a good show. This is actually a pretty good show. A very interesting show in some cases, but for the most part, a very talk-heavy show. Also, with the aspect that that gauntlet match for the Global Force Wrestling Impact Championship is pretty much the last hour of the show. Everything else happens in that first hour, and then that match ends out happening to finish off the show. So they start off the show with Jim Cornette basically instructing and telling everybody what was going down with the gauntlet and everything in that sense throughout the night, kind of hyping them up for the match, saying anyone can win, all that kind of stuff. He was kind of trying to make it feel like a legit, full-on, battle that was going to go on for the match. They kind of have close-ups on everybody, everything that go along with that. You also have plenty of promos a little bit later on from pretty much most of the guys, Low-Key, EC3, Eddie Edwards, a bunch of the guys inside the Battle Royal. Eli Drake's in there, Chris Adonis is in there. Pretty much anyone who could cut a promo did cut a promo on the Battle Royal a little bit later on in the evening, and some pretty good promos to go along with it. It was some really good promos inside of there. They were all in quick cut, but for the most part, pretty good promos leading into the Battle Royal. You have the first match of the night, which was OVE going up against the Heat Seekers. This was pretty much a squash match for OVE. They won rather quickly. Honestly, they looked a lot better this week than they did last week. Last week they kind of came off as kind of ho-hum. This week they kind of came off as more of a legit thing, or like legit threat to everything in their sense. Their ring attire, it is what it is, and in that sense they're kind of more punker type guys. They also play off of like a yin and yang area, so I guess one's considered the light, one's considered the dark. I haven't figured out which one's which yet. I'll figure that out over time though. I'll figure that one out over time. But yeah, decent enough match. Again, another little showcase match here, and like I said, they looked a lot better this week than they did the week before. They do have some very inventive tag team maneuvers, and it'll be interesting to see them down the road and see what they can provide down the road for everything in that sense. Up next, you had Eli Drake and Chris Adonis walk into Jim Cornette's office. He had made mention to somebody getting fined like $5,000. They made mention to this in the beginning segment where Lashley was late and he was apparently going to get fined. So he was talking, I guess, to the corporate guys, saying that this was going to happen or something in that sense. But after he gets off the phone, Eli Drake and Chris Adonis, or basically Eli Drake, was trying to talk his way out of being the number one entrant in the Battle Royal, and getting to the point that Jim Cornette is like, if I give you a different number, will you just shut up? It's like, yeah, of course. And he's like, yeah, of course. It's like, okay, you won't be number one. You'll be number two. Goodbye. Jim Cornette's great. At least on the microphone, he's great. I do enjoy his microphone work and everything in that sense, and just his talk in general. And the more I look at this, actually, I'm taking a look at this now. Yeah, this is pretty much all talk until up until the Battle Royal, up until the Gauntlet match for the title. That's interesting to note now. I just kind of recognized that as I was watching, is that there is a lot of talk in this show in this first hour, and then the Battle Royal basically kind of is like, okay, you've had an hour now of talk, here's an hour of a match. And you had the one match beforehand as well. Up next, though, is Taryn Terrell coming out to cut an interview, and I don't know what to even say. It seems like she's just basically out there in lingerie right now, in that sense. She cuts a promo on Gail Kim about why she attacked Gail Kim. She comes off as very, I won't say, she doesn't come off as playing dumb or anything in that sense. She just comes off as that kind of annoying type of female character. And I don't mean like just like your base, like the basic one that we usually see in the terms of an annoying character. She comes off like she's, what is it? Pretty much, she feels like she's above everyone else. That is kind of the typical. It's hard to say exactly what she is. She doesn't seem like she's coming off like the basic heel character. She kind of has a little bit of conviction behind it, everything in that sense. And her promo on Gail Kim was pretty decent as well. She cuts. At least she cut the promo on Gail Kim, which it does eventually prompt Gail Kim to come out. Jeremy Borash gets in between both of them, which causes Tara Terrell to run and basically lead to something more further down the road. So we'll see how that one ends up going out. Up next, you have Lashley entering into Jim Cornette's office. Again, another Jim Cornette office. We have one more after this as well. And I'll probably just get into that right after this one. But Lashley comes in, and they basically have an argument over what America's Top Team did the week before, everything to go along with that. And yeah, it was a lot of back and forth, and they're playing off of this whole, is Lashley going to leave professional wrestling? Is he going to just do strictly MMA like his coaches want him to do, everything to go along with that? And I like how he makes mention inside of the promo. It's like, you know how much money this guy's giving up by just doing this and not MMA type line. Yeah, it was a pretty good segment. And the last one that they had of the night, it was Jim Cornette talking with Eddie Edwards about the Battle Royal. He makes mention to him having a crummy number, but he knows he can pull this one off. Basically puts him over. Like, even talks about him in the past, like how he had done a match with like a broken arm, everything in that sense, how he was going to do the main event and everything inside that particular match. He puts him over pretty hard in this match. Or pretty hard in this segment, and kind of leading into the Battle Royal. So up next, we had Grado coming out to do what was to be his farewell address. He basically lists everything he was going to miss off, which ended up being a lot of food. And then, of course, at the end, he thanks the fans a lot, how he would miss them to go along with everything, having to go home. And as he was about to leave, Laurel Van Ness comes out, and she's no longer in that crazy mode. She's kind of back to normal and everything in that sense. So she starts cutting a quick promo, and she asks Grado if he would marry her. Of course, Grado says yes. This does eventually bring out Congo Kong, which was an interesting bit, because as Congo Kong was coming down to the ring, Muhammad Ali Shira shows up. And Muhammad Ali Shira, he just gets in the middle on the rampway, and Congo Kong backs off. So it looks like we're going to have something between Congo Kong and Muhammad Ali Shira, and they kind of give Muhammad Ali Shira like this aura about him that he can even back off somebody like Congo Kong at that point in time. And yeah, it was a decent enough segment. Kind of a weird one, but then again, everything with Grado kind of is kind of like that awkward, or they try to be funny segment. I've never been a big fan of Grado, but I know there are a lot of people that are. I like I said, the segment was decent enough, and we'll see where everything goes on with that one. So before the Gauntlet match, you had LAX in basically in their clubhouse segment, and they basically hype up low key for the match with inside of the Gauntlet match, him being number 20 in that sense of everything, and it's one of those, like I said, it was just one of those things. They kind of talk about a few other things, like nitpicking things that they have, like basically like, what was it? They basically kind of make LAX to almost be like a cartel in some way, shape, or form. How they control things coming across from Mexico into the U.S., everything to go along with that, and of course they hype up low key to try to bring in that gold, bring in the world heavyweight title to LAX along with everything. So this brings us to that Gauntlet match. They called it Gaunlet For The Gold. And this is basically a 20-man Royal Rumble with a certain extent, with basically over-the-top rules until the last two. You had guys, so to start off the match, before we get into other people that were in there, to start off the match, you had Eddie Edwards and Eli Drake. So you got where they were going with everything. Eli Drake obviously being put in the number 2 slot beforehand. We knew that. But Eddie Edwards, his crummy number, ended out him being number 1. To start off the match, and you did have more people obviously coming in throughout the entire match. People like Moose, of course Lashley. These are some of the later ones. You had a guy that they've kind of had around in the backstage segments, the standby wrestler Richard Justice, which he gets departed of pretty quickly inside of the match. You have Phantasmo inside of this match as well. He looked pretty good in this one, inside of the Gauntlet match. This is probably what is it, the third time I've seen Phantasmo. I know he's about to be in the main event of the Triple H's Triple Mania, which is on Saturday, which I will unfortunately be at a fighting game tournament, so I will not be able to watch that. Though they are apparently streaming it live on Twitch, which is interesting. They're not doing pay-per-view, they're doing Twitch for this one. That's going to be an interesting way of going about it. Well, who else ended up looking good? Oh, in the terms of one-on-one, I know they had Falaba and Mario Baraka, Bahaka. I forget how to say the last name, but Mario looked really good in his time inside of this match. He gets eliminated probably around the number 10 or 11 spot inside of this match, but he looked really good. He was pulling off some really good suplexes, good moves inside the ring. He was kind of showcasing himself a little bit more inside of this match. So they made mention to a surprise entrant in this match, and the surprise entrant in this match was, well, I'm probably going to always call him Johnny Mundo now, or John Morrison, but they're calling him Johnny Impact. Oh my god, that's such a dumb name. And I love how EC3 inside of the match, when he gains control for a little bit, making mention to how dumb that name is. It is such a bad name in any way, shape, or form, and I'm glad that some people are kind of pointing that out. I'm a fan of John Morrison's, Johnny Mundo's, and I hope he does well. But Johnny Impact is such a bad name, such a bad name. But of course, Johnny Mundo shows up in the match. He has a very good showing for himself. Matter of fact, he goes down to the final 3 inside of this match. The final 5 inside of this match, because Low-Key comes out at number 20, and he gets eliminated within the first 2 minutes. The guy who was supposed to be fighting for the title just a week ago gets eliminated within like 2 minutes inside of the match. And the final 5 in this match, I believe, were Moose, Johnny Mundo, Lashley, Eddie Edwards, and Eli Drake inside of this match. Lashley eliminates, I believe, Lashley actually gets eliminated, and then Moose gets eliminated. Lashley kind of hangs around. on the outside. Oh yeah, they did continue on with the story with Muhammad Ali Shira and Congo Kong as well, because Muhammad Ali Shira eliminates Congo Kong in the match to go along with it. So we get down to the final three because Lashley gets eliminated by Moose, and then Moose gets eliminated. So they got both Mundo, Eddie Edwards, and Eli Drake. They kind of fight around for a bit. It looks like Mundo's about to be eliminated, but what was it? Eli Drake charges at him. He misses, goes in through the second rope, and then and then Mundo fights off Eddie Edwards, where Eli Drake just pulls his leg out and eliminates him from the match, which brings it down to a one-on-one match with Eddie Edwards and Eli Drake. Yeah, the two that start are the two that finish. And to be honest with you, this this portion of the match, of course, ends by pinfall or submission. This portion probably lasted about another 3 or 4 minutes. Pretty good wrestling between both guys, but playing off of being worn down, everything in that sense throughout the match. Eventually, where it looked like Eddie Edwards was going to pull out the victory, Eli Drake pulls out the Celtic Cross. I forget what he calls it, and ends up. But with that move, he ends up getting the pinfall in the match and winning the title. And I've always been a fan of the Battle Royal, and honestly, the Gauntlet match in the terms of coming up with different rules for matches, I've actually been a fan of this one. There's a few matches that they've had in there that are very contrived and not very good, but the Gauntlet match has usually been a good one, and I've always enjoyed that. So Eli Drake is the Global Force Wrestling Impact Champion, and he's always been pretty good in the ring, and he's always been really good on the mic. And it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays off with him becoming the world champion, and see how he plays off of that, and see how good he is in that champion's role. The one downside that I saw with this is because you had America's Top Team on the outside, and Lashley stayed around for the whole thing. Again, just like last week, one of the guys attacks a referee, and they're playing this off in some way of like, I don't know what they're trying to play this off with America's Top Team thing. It's like they just come in and do whatever they want at ringside, including attack a referee or something in that sense afterwards. You have Lashley trying to maintain control, and everyone else trying to maintain control of like the team and everything in that sense. So it's like Lashley comes off as a guy who doesn't want them doing what they're doing, but he also is part of that team to go along with it. But they do this like right after the match, so it takes away from like Eli Drake, celebrating with the world title to go along with it. That was my only real downside to this, but otherwise a very good match to what was, to be honest with you, a pretty good Impact. A very talk-heavy Impact, but you also had the last hour of the show pretty much be the Gauntlet match. Though you could also tell that they were, kind of just pausing the video at commercial breaks, because they would come out. It's like the next person's about to come out, you have like a 3 or 4 minute commercial break, and then the next person comes out. So, quote unquote, you're supposed to think that they're going through more of the match as it's happening, but they would always cut to someone else, like as someone else was about to come out type thing when they would go to commercial break, and then they would come out afterwards. That was like, but that's like nitpicking there, because the match itself, like I said, was very enjoyable. So with that being said, everyone, that is pretty much everything I have on Impact Wrestling this week. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll try to bring back NXT next week in the terms of the reviews. I just figured with the aspect of it being right after TakeOver, and it's usually a very heavy recap show, that it wasn't really necessary in any way, shape, or form. So we'll probably bring that back next week. I thank you guys for tuning into this one again, and have a great rest of your day.